Good evening and welcome to Kinship Carers UK. Tonight we have two special guests. We have Alison and Andrew Gwynne. Would you like to introduce yourselves, please?
Right, who's going first?
I always go first, so I'll go first.
Go on then.
Okay.
You go first. You see how I hesitated? I knew what the answer would be.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Alison Gwynne. I'm married to Andrew Gwynne MP. I'm a councillor on Tameside Council, where we live in beautiful sunny or rainy Manchester. It's just stopped raining. I'm jealous of your weather. We have had our beautiful grandson living with us full time from 8 weeks old. We've held an SGO now for 4 years, and he's 5 and in reception class, and he's a little Bobby Dazzler.
I'm Andrew Gwynne.
SGO holders as well. Sorry, I forgot that part.
Yeah. just the important bit.
Just the important bit. So
I'm Andrew Gwynne. I'm Member of Parliament for Denton and Reddish. I've been the MP for Denton and Reddish, which is my hometown, where I've always lived, grown up, brought my own family up for 19 years now. Married to Alison. We've got 3 children of our own and our wonderful grandson, Lyle, who we are special guardians to.
Thank you. How have you found your kinship journey? Because obviously we can't give out details, but you have been kinship carers for quite a while now. You're very experienced kinship carers. Would you like to share some of your story?
I can probably
I'm not going to lie that it's been traumatic, but I'll let Alison tell you the tale of woe.
I'm sure that you guys would probably understand the context if I said we're at stage 2 complaint with our local council. Yeah. And therein lies the issue, doesn't it? You know, nothing's ever smooth, nothing's ever easy. SGOs are a very blunt instrument to crack a nut, but actually in lots of ways they're not great for us all. But you know, if we had to go back to the start and do it again, like all you guys, we'd do it all over again, because our little one is extraordinary.
Oh, bless you. Andrew, how are you finding it? Because Alison, you spend most of your time with your grandson and you're up and down the country, Andrew. How do you find your role as a kinship carer?
So, look, the hardest part of my job, and this was true with my own children, was being away Monday to Thursday. This week it's Monday to Friday, and missing lots of their growing up. I have to admit, with the 3 children, when they were fighting in the car at Stockport Station, when Alison had got to take me home, I did wonder what I'd missed all week. But that's the beauty of being a parent, isn't it? You know, they frustrate the life out of you, but you wouldn't swap them for anything. And I miss Lyle like mad during the week, mainly because he owns me when I'm at home. He's the boss of me, and that's the way it should be. And he doesn't give us a moment's peace. He always wants to be playing. He's always asking questions. He's always giddy-goating. And that's the best thing about being a kinship carer. It's the best thing about being his special guardian. It's the best thing about being his granddad, is spending time with him. So yeah, it's tough. You know, the nature of the job that I've got is that Alison is effectively a single parent for part of the week. And then I get run ragged for the other half of the week. But he's just wonderful and he's worth it.
Brilliant. Earlier on, we discussed, you touched on difficulties, which was the complaint that you're going through. Obviously, we can't discuss your complaint. Do you find, being in the public eye as an MP, that being a kinship carer and obviously having the same issues as us normal people that aren't MPs and councillors, do you find that's a difficult thing for you to do, or how do you find it?
Enza, it's incredibly difficult on one level, but incredibly empowering on another. I mean, you talk about normal people. Alison's a councillor. I'm a member of Parliament. We don't expect special treatment because of who we are. But the fact that the level of service we got from our own local authority has led to us being in stage 2 of complaints with them shows you that it's nothing personal. Children's services across the country are often incapable of providing the right level of advice, the right level of support, and the right level of help when you need it. And it doesn't matter whether you're the Member of Parliament or you're not. We're all in this same boat together. Why I think it's empowering is because I have a platform where I can talk about my experiences, which are no different to your experiences, and I can talk to power about it. So, for example, the last debate we had on Kinship Care, I was able to talk about mine and Alison's experiences in a way that other MPs can talk about Kinship Care, but they've not got the lived experience of it and of the system. And it was really touching when I left the chamber that some of the kinship carers that were in the audience, in the public gallery in Westminster Hall, stopped me to say thank you for just understanding what we're going through and for vocalising it. So actually it's a pressure because of who we are. We are open to attack by Lyle's other side of the family, because, and you know, Enza, that,
Yeah,
you know, allegations can very easily be made. And because of who we are, they have to be looked into. So it's an extra pressure that lots of people who aren't in that position don't have. But it's also a privilege to be able to have a voice in Parliament, and in Alison's case in the town hall, to be able to express what other kinship carers are going through.
amazing, thank you. So that leads me on to your position of the APPG and what is the APPG? Would you like to explain to our lovely people?
Yeah, so APPG stands for All Party Parliamentary Group, and there are hundreds of them on every subject you can think of. And a lot of really good work goes on in the APPGs because they are genuinely cross-party. So party politics is taken out of it. And MPs and members of the House of Lords from across the political spectrum come together on an issue. There's lots of campaign work done on whatever issue it is. And in this case, the APPG on kinship is what it says on the tin. We are the all-party parliamentary group on kinship care. And we engage with the various kinship organisations. We campaign on kinship issues. And we try and get the government to accept our findings where we've done research, to make recommendations to ministers, to meet with ministers, and to hopefully get changes in place. And it's a slow process, but it's an important process because the Department for Education actually, I think, values the work that the APPG on kinship care do. The reports we produce, we've been able to engage directly with ministers. And on some of those things, ministers have taken on board what we've said and have made changes, not enough in my view, but they've made some changes. And certainly the fact that the government now has a kinship strategy, and again, I would argue it doesn't go anywhere near as far enough, but it's at least a first step. There is a strategy, is in no small part down to the work of the APPG.
I'm grateful for that. Absolutely. So what's happening now with the APPG? So what's on the agenda?
So last year we were looking at the legal minefield around kinship care, and the fact that there isn't even a proper definition of what kinship care is. And that really is the basic starting point. What is kinship care? And once you've defined what kinship care is, then how do we better improve the support to those who are taking on those caring responsibilities? And, you know, what I find really frustrating, we've got a special guardianship order, so that gives us some form of protection. It's far from ideal, believe me, and part of me thinks if we knew then what we know now, we might have gone down a different route to special guardianship orders, but nobody tells you these things. They kind of bamboozle you and push you in one direction.
Railroad you in.
So a definition of kinship, a strengthening of certain arrangements, both in the interest of the child, but also in the interest of those that are taking on the caring responsibilities, because we have very limited protections in law. And for example, Alison and myself have just recently been sent back to the family court on spurious grounds in an attempt to change the contact arrangements. And the contact arrangements were changed, but actually in Lyle's favour, in our grandson's favour, to restrict the contact with the other parent at this moment in time. But we felt that, and you know, we're lucky in some respects that I'm in a very well-paid job. Lots of people who have similar experiences aren't as fortunate and have to dip into savings, have to remortgage, have to beg, borrow and steal to be able to go through the legal minefield. So part of the work that we did last year was on legal aid and what changes there needs to be to legal aid, but also that wider support in navigating the legal minefield around kinship, which often too many people get dragged into without any real support or proper advice, unless you've got the money to be able to pay for that. This year, we are looking at the government strategy and how we can take certain elements of that strategy further, what a future government, whichever colour it might turn out to be after the general election, how they can build on that kinship strategy to get something that's worthy of the paper it's printed on, to get stronger rights for kinship carers, and greater protections, not just for kinship carers, but as a consequence for the children we're looking after, because sometimes it seems they're an afterthought in the system as well. So it's about that long-term security. It's about that wraparound service that just isn't there. And it's also about promoting kinship as the best option in many cases for children, because again, too many children's services across the country, kinship is an afterthought. And actually kinship should be, I believe very strongly, the first port of call. Other options only flow if kinship isn't a viable option, whereas it seems to be the other way around. We almost had to fight to stop children's services putting our grandson up for adoption, because we weren't part of the equation until family events went horribly wrong and baby needed an urgent temporary foster care placement. So grandma and granddad it was, and then thank God, once we'd got him, That bond was there so that ultimately, as the legal processes dragged on, the argument was to keep him with us because he now had a bond. But if those circumstances had been different, I wouldn't be here talking to you now as a kinship carer. I'd be a very bitter granddad that would have no contact with my grandson.
I'm glad the right decisions were made. What are you planning for next year, or because I know you're sort of towards the end of the year, aren't you? Well, this year.
Yeah, so we've got our AGM coming up. We have to have one. The reality is the work programme is not going to be very extensive because there is an imminent general election, and once that's called, all APPGs cease to exist, and then they have to be recreated at the other side of the general election. So what we will be focusing on in the months, or it could even be the weeks ahead, is trying to pin down firm commitments from the main political parties so that kinship is not just in the manifestos, but it is a priority for the new government, whatever colour it might take, to make the changes we want to see and to beef up that kinship strategy.
What can we do as citizens, bystanders, watchers of these political parties? What can we do to push this forward? Could we
lobby your MPs and get your MPs to lobby their education spokespeople? So if your MPs are Conservative, get them to lobby the Secretary of State. If your MP is Labour, get them to lobby Bridget Phillipson, the Shadow Secretary of State. And likewise, if your MP is SNP, Plaid Cymru, Liberal Democrat, or whatever, lobby their education spokespeople to make sure that in their party's manifestos there is a firm commitment to improving the lot of kinship carers and of kinship care. I'm doing my bit, obviously, as a Labour MP, to bend the ear of Helen Hayes, who leads on children's issues, and to bend the ear of Bridget Phillipson, the Shadow Secretary of State, because I believe that it's not going to cost a lot of money. It is not. It's will rather than money, and we can make a lot of changes just through having the right direction in the Department for Education to recognise kinship care, to define kinship care, to set out a framework of rights as well as the responsibilities. We get told what our responsibilities are. We never get told what rights we have, you know, and it's about having that impact. And it's very similar to a piece of work I'm doing. I'm the Shadow Social Care Minister, and we're looking at, we're committed to a carers strategy. And I'm very keen that that carers strategy doesn't just sit in the Department for Health and Social Care, but it's a piece of work that has to be done across government, including future of work, looking at paid care leave. And, you know, I feel very passionately that that should include kinship care. I think it's shocking that if Alison and I had had a baby back in 2019, I would have been entitled to paternity leave as a Member of Parliament. If we had adopted our grandson, I would have been entitled to paternity leave as a Member of Parliament. The Social Services Stalk drops a baby on mine and Alison's doorstep. Our lives change overnight, and I'm not entitled to paternity leave as a Member of Parliament. So even the House of Commons has to get its act together on this. But, you know, I think things like paternity and maternity rights for kinship carers, paid care leave, whatever you want to call it, that clearly sits with future of work, with Angela Rayner. the Department for Education in defining what kinship is, and so on, Ministry of Justice for making sure that we sort out the legal labyrinth that people find themselves into, and right the way through, the whole of government needs to see this as a cross-government issue. So whilst Department for Education will lead on this, you know, DWP has a role here, because there is an impact on people's access to social security, to benefits, and so on. There's the if you're a pensioner, you are completely penalised by being kinship care, particularly if you're in a local authority that only pays allowances based on means test. Again, we're very fortunate in this respect that Tameside has a nil detriment policy, so they pay the kinship allowance irrespective of what your earnings are. But the whole of government needs to realise that kinship care and the issues surrounding kinship care, not just for the Department for Education, they take the lead on it, but actually the whole of government needs to come together to fix different bits of the kinship puzzle together.
Perhaps this is one for, let you have a little rest, one for Alison. How would you lobby an MP? What can we do? Because you mentioned
it's for me because I sleep with one.
Oh, we can't do that.
I go in the shed if I give the wrong answer.
I mean, some MPs are easier than others, but they all have advice surgeries, they all have emails. It's make an appointment with their office, ask to go and see them and raise it with them, write to them, email them, doorstep them when they're at an event. You know, there's lots and lots of different ways to contact them. And for the most part, when you explain to an MP, if you don't understand what a kinship carer is, when you start to explain to people what a kinship carer is, they're amazed that you're doing this, and they think, aren't you brave, aren't you? No, we're not. We're doing what we have to do, but you need to help us. And kind of that's my advice. It's email your MP, don't take no for an answer, get an appointment, get face to face with them, and just sit down and look them in the face and tell them how it is, tell them how life is, how the system is not set up for kinship carers. And ultimately we do the best that we can within the system that we've got, but you can't bring kids up on the cheap. And I think that there's lots of elements where it feels like we're, you know, social service departments see us as a cheap and easy option, whereas actually I view us as the best option. Absolutely the best option for a child and young person is to be with loving family members or associated friends of family, because the upbringing is you maintain those links with wider networks, and for most children that's really, really vital for them.
Brilliant. I saw Amanda put a comment on saying WhatsApp them. There's no way I'm now giving Amanda my number if she harasses MPs by WhatsApp.
Okay, but you don't need harassing so much because you're already doing it. So we need to speak to our MP.
It does work because MPs are elected, you know, they work for you, they work for us, you know, and that's, and lots of them don't understand and don't know what it's like to be a kinship carer. So just to open their eyes by giving that lived experience, you're giving them an education that they actually need.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So can we ask our MP, can we lobby our MPs to join the APPG? Would that help?
Absolutely. No, it would help. They've changed the rules on APPGs now to restrict the number that MPs can join. So some MPs won't be able to because they're already members of a number of APPGs. But if they can, that would be great. And at the very least, get them to the AGM, because we have to be quorum for the AGM. So we need to have, I think it's 5 MPs, including 1 from the government party. Now, we've never struggled with the APPG on kinship care, so it's not something that gives me a sleepless night. Sometimes, talking of WhatsApp, sometimes when we're in the APPG AGM period, you'll get WhatsApps from colleagues saying, I'm 1 short for a quorum. Is anybody passing committee room 3? You know.
jump in.
But please get your MP to join if they can.
Brilliant, thank you. Here's a nice tricky question for you. What's the Labour Party doing for Kinship Care?
So this is why this piece of work is really important. Look, you're pushing on an open door when it comes to Helen Hayes, who leads on children's services on the Labour front bench, and Bridget Phillipson as the Shadow Secretary of State. But I want to get a firm commitment somewhere in the manifesto that as part of our policy towards families, we need to have both better recognition and better support for kinship. Doesn't have to go into great deal, because once you're in government, you can then say, look, we've got a manifesto commitment to strengthen kinship and to have kinship as a priority. Therefore, you know, what do we need to do to strengthen the kinship strategy that we've inherited? What changes do we need to make? What research do we need to do? What engagement with kinship charities, kinship carers do we need to do to get this strategy right? But we need to have a signal of intention somewhere in the manifesto that kinship care matters, that kinship care should be prioritised, and kinship carers should be better supported. Because on all three of those things at the moment, I would say kinship care isn't really recognised, kinship care isn't supported, and the support that kinship carers get is very hit and miss around the country, and more often it's missed than hit.
Agree with that one. Right, what about locally, Alison? This is one for you. What about locally? What can we do? What can councillors do for kinship carers locally in our areas?
I think, well, certainly the first thing that comes to mind is that every local authority will have scrutiny committees. Find out who's in charge of your children and families or education, depends what they tell, but I'll ask that councillor to charge of social services, ask them if they do a scrutiny review of kinship care in the area, and give them some examples of the care that you've received, so that you'll come and talk to them, to councillors, and tell them how it is. Because as corporate parents, it's something that's banded around to councillors, that your corporate parents, every looked after child you're responsible for, but they neglect to mention children that are kinship cared on all sorts of orders, because some of them aren't the responsibility of the local council and some of them are, but as a subset they're kind of pushed to the side and ignored because they're okay. They're not as vulnerable as others, because you've got families that fiercely advocate for them. So just raising the profile within the council for those young people via the scrutiny process is a really good start. And if you've got an effective scrutiny process within your local authority, if you can get it on their work programme to have a look at how they deal with kinship carers, how they pay kinship foster carers, the national legislation that says that they should be paid equivalent rates and that they should be training, and all those little bugbears, you know, the things that local authorities should do and don't do, you can shine a light on them and start to chip away at that, to raise councillors' expectations and understanding of how we are a forgotten subset within social services. I think it's a really good start.
Brilliant.
Well, and I have to say, CAMS, it doesn't matter which part of the United Kingdom you're in, the same story could be told in Wales, the same story could be told in England, the same story could be told in Northern Ireland as the story that you've told in Scotland. In fact, this is our latest battle, because our grandson we were prepared for this because of his pre-birth situation, which I won't go into, but he's now developing signs of autism and borderline ADHD as well, and there's just no way we can get him assessed for that. It's a 4-year wait.
Yeah, I was going to say
that's our next battle.
Hold up with your hands, because I bet lots of you, your little ones will have had had ADHD or autism. So as is 4 years, how many years in your local authority area are you
3.
looking at?
2. Blimey.
2.
3.
We have a winner, but
Who's
4
got 2?
years. And I have to
5.
figure in the HCP myself because the school's only spending £4,500 extra a year on him, and the local authority have told the school that if it's less than £6,000, they won't support it coming from the school, that we'd have to put it in as parents. And is very kindly giving me some steer on that one, but shrug and go, well, you could always go private. It shouldn't be that choice. When you're kind of taking in little ones that have got, and we all know that they'll have additionalities, lots of them have got additionalities, the system isn't agile and says, well, actually they're facing significant barriers as it is, as they've had those care experiences. It doesn't make it easy for us, does it?
No. Right, I'd like to say thank you so much. We are going to end the recording in a couple of minutes. We can continue afterwards. Thank you so much, Andrew and Alison, for giving us your time.